It was a big week for brand new game trailers and reveals, but we also got some sad news because a big game got cancelled. On the other hand, exciting news because The Last of Us Part 3 really seems to be happening. I want to go over some new Ubisoft leaks, also a bit about the future of Assassin's Creed and other Ubisoft franchises, but first let's look at the state of play that had more than 15 games, with one of the highlights totally being Rise of the Ronin. Like, we finally got a good gameplay look at the open world mashup of Assassin's Creed, Neo and Sekiro. In terms of movement and combat, it looks a lot like Team Ninja's previous work, but then in an Assassin's Creed open world with a small urban environment. You can explore by foot with your glider, and then you can seamlessly transition to your horse. It looks really nice. But there are of course also the familiar outposts we can take over, and they sometimes can include annoying fast enemies that seem to be straight out of Sekiro. Parrying seems to be a big part of the combat as well, and we do have a gun that we can use to interrupt enemy attacks, and you can even wield a flamethrower. Now sure, I saw some people talk about it, the graphics are not what you expect from a Sony published title, but I think apart from that, it looks pretty awesome, and we will do a more in-depth video on it very soon, so subscribe if you are new to not miss that. We also got a new look at Stellar, another PS5 exclusive that now got an April 26th release date, a great window without a lot of competition, but I'm still not convinced after seeing this 6-minute long trailer. I think the setting is pretty interesting. So we are sent back to Earth from an off-world colony to defeat an alien threat that has taken over Earth, and there are only a few survivors left who we meet along the way, and somehow they all turn out to be models. Like, only the pretty people have survived in this game. No, but the scope and the linear, semi-open level structure, the graphics, it all feels more like a mid-gen PS4 game to me. But if the combat is as good as it looks, then I do think it could still be awesome. It seems like there's a big focus on the narrative as well. Oh, and we also have a lot of great outfits for Eve, our main character. That totally seems to be one of the key pillars for the game. No, but a demo or something for this would be awesome. I want to keep an open mind. Let me know if you're excited in the comments down below. Another game that we saw during the state of play, but that is also coming to Xbox and PC, is Judas from Ken Levine, the mastermind behind Bioshock 1 and Bioshock Infinite. And while the action still looks a lot like that from the Bioshock franchise, the difference is that this time we make choices that should impact the narrative. Once again, the unique looking machines that we get to fight really steal the show, and overall there's this creepy vibe going on, just like the first trailer. We don't really have a clue what's going on here. I really hope it launched this year, but there was no date for it, sadly, at the end of the trailer. But we do know for a fact that Death Stranding 2 is coming in 2025. It was announced at the end of a very impressive showcase. Like, this is the first game running on Guerrilla's Decima engine that is built from the ground up for the PS5. While Horizon Forbidden West also, of course, launched on PS4, so imagine Horizon 3 looking like this as well, because it looks absolutely insane. The environments in Death Stranding 2 are really impressive. The character models and cutscenes that were shown were insane, with the highlight totally being Troy Baker's character using a guitar weapon against a Raiden-like cyborg. We still play Sam though, but he's not alone this time. He has this talking doll with him that moves at a lower frame rate, and it really seems that they just took some cues from God of War with Mimir, because he will also be hanging on your wrist. Fragile also once again plays a key role. She this time has these hands as a face mask that can do all sort of things. Yes, it's the Kojima craziness. I really dig it, but it does seem that the gameplay is still very much focused around delivering cargo, only now there can be natural disasters as well that can destroy the bridge you wanted to cross. That seems pretty stressful to me. Like, we have to know more about the gameplay. They did show more guns, so hopefully it will be more combat focused, because that would get me to play the second game again. I think it looks really cool, but I just don't want to deliver cargo anymore. I'm over that. I finished Death Stranding 1. Not again, please. But I of course totally get that if you like the first game, that this looks like everything you wanted, right? Now, more exciting, I think, is that Kojima and Herman Hulst announced that once Death Stranding 2 is finished, Kojima will be working on a next-generation action espionage game for PlayStation. So he's returning to what made him famous, and he notes that I will celebrate the 40th anniversary of my game production career. I'm confident that this title will be the culmination of my work. Yes, that's super exciting, because again, I don't really like Death Stranding, but I love his work, so getting more like Metal Gear would be really cool. But again, he's gonna work on this after Death Stranding 2 is finished in 2025. So this title is gonna come out 2029 at the earliest. so it's gonna be a PS6 title for sure. He also notes that of course it's an interactive game, but it's also a movie at the same time in terms of look, story, team, cast, acting, fashion and sound. So basically like all his games. We will see in 4 years at the earliest. So yeah, the state of play was overall pretty solid. We also had a Metro VR game. There will of course still be like a AAA regular Metro game. The PS5 PC version for Until Dawn was also confirmed for later this year. A Silent Hill game was shadow dropped. It's free, but it is sadly getting bad reviews. And we also saw a new trailer for Silent Hill 2, although it did not look that great. And what's up with this gun sound? Now there is more interesting PlayStation news. I already teased it a bit in the intro, but first let's go over the Ubisoft Leaks. Of course, if you liked the video so far, leaving a like would really help me out, and subscribe because I post one of these news roundup videos every Sunday. So Tom Henderson talked to some Ubisoft employees and put up this big article from low morale to internal tensions. Yeah, it doesn't sound great. It starts off with the fact that people inside Ubisoft are afraid that there might be layoffs at the company. As discussed last week, there have been more than 6,000 layoffs in the gaming industry in 2024, so in only 1 month, and it sadly might not be over yet. And Ubisoft employs more than 19,000 people, which is almost the same as Microsoft after they bought Activision Blizzard King, so let that sink in. While Ubisoft's revenue is obviously just a fraction of that of Xbox and Activision. But Ubisoft is always known for having a ton of people work for them, so I hope they can sustain themselves, although the problem is that the cost of making games is of course rising and they're just not releasing many hits. Like in that Tom Henderson article, it's noted that the Prince of Persia game had around 300,000 players at the time of writing. He also estimates revenue, but that is the price of the game times the amount of players. But Ubisoft of course does not take 100% of the revenue. They have to, for example, on the PlayStation Store give 30% to Sony. So they made way less on the game. They probably did not make their budget back yet. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is only at 1.9 million players, which also not really a lot for a big franchise like this. Like Spider-Man 2 sold more than Avatar in 24 hours. Now I do hope that both games, maybe with discounts and maybe when the third Avatar movie comes out, will still find an audience, but overall this is not looking great. While Assassin's Creed Mirage has done super well with 5 million players since launch, and for a Valhalla DLC they turned into a full game with 2.5 years of development time, and that is really great. So not weird that Ubisoft is focusing on Assassin's Creed way more moving forward. So in this article he also talks about the Ubisoft games that are coming in 2025 or 2026. This includes a new mainline entry to Ghost Recon, it's internally called Project Over, set during the fictional Neyman War. So set in a fictional Kazakhstan, which would be perfect for an open world Ghost Recon as the environment there is beautiful. Of course, your theories on what this could mean for the story, etc. leave that in the comments. In 2025 we're getting 2 new Far Cry titles, including a multiplayer game that's coming out first, an extraction based shooter, and a new mainline entry, Far Cry 7 probably, internally called Project Blackbird. 2 new Assassin's Creed games, Hexe and Invictus, with Invictus being a multiplayer game by the For Honor team that should be out in 2025, and Hexe, the witch hunt game from Ubisoft Montreal, the Valhalla team, in 2026. And the already announced Splinter Cell remake should also launch in 2025 or 2026. I hoped it would be this year, like the end of 2024, more than 3 years after they started working on it. Would be cool. Maybe it's like an early 2025 title. Overall though, seems like they got a pretty cool lineup, and then it's noted that Assassin's Creed Black Flag, the remake, it's called Project Obsidian, is coming in 2027 or beyond. We know that Division 3 is of course also coming later on. But yeah, what has Ubisoft then planned for 2024? Well, Star Wars Outlaws in the first half of 2024 and Assassin's Creed Codename Red for the second half of 2024. No surprise there for Assassin's Creed, but Star Wars Outlaws, well, it gets better, as internally right now Ubisoft is aiming for May for that game, although as Tom also notes, they could totally delay that. But yeah, they first wanted to have the game out by the end of March, and then they delayed it to possibly May, so it's not impossible, but I can totally see them push it further out if they need more time. So then I would be looking at like September, October, and then Assassin's Creed Red in November. On February 8th, Ubisoft will do their investor call, so they might reveal something there. I will at least be listening, of course, and report to you all the news in next week's Sunday video, so subscribe to not miss it. Now, before we talk about some very exciting news, let's first quickly discuss a sad story, because Embracer is at it again. This time they cancelled a Deus Ex game in development at Eidos Montreal, and 100 people got laid off from the studio, which around 20 to 25 25% of the whole team. So there are like 300 people left at the studio right now. The game was seemingly in development for 2 years, and I really guess that this is then the end of the series, right? Also 2 years of development time wasted. I really loved the Guardians of the Galaxy, their most recent game, so it's now sad that it will be a really long time before we see something new from them again. But again, let's counter that with some exciting news, because at the end of the brand new documentary for the making of The Last of Us Part 2, I will leave a link to it in the video description, Neil Druckmann talked about how he earlier had an idea for a story that stars Tommy. It takes place after the ending of Part 2. It's a smaller story, not a full title, and he still thinks that it will see the light of day as a game or a story at one point. So he had this story idea written out around the launch of The Last of Us Part 2, but now it's shelved. Again, it might come back later, and it could then be like a Lost Legacy situation. I think that would be really cool. But he then talks about how he, until recently, did not have a real idea for The Last of Us Part 3, and this was, by the way, filmed in April 2023. But now he thinks that there will probably be one more chapter to this story. I mean, again, this was placed at the end of the documentary. It can't get more official than that, but it also sounds super far away. So it really seems that we are first getting a brand new IP first, and then The Last of Us Part 3. And honestly, that makes me super excited. We already knew that they were working on multiple brand new single player games, but that the new IP was first and then Part 3. I think it's awesome. The Last of Us became a thing because Naughty Dog moved on from Uncharted. So I just can't wait to see what this new thing is. And let me know what you hope this next IP from Naughty Dog will be about. In The Last of Us Part 1 we had these fantasy type teases. Maybe it's that. Something else. Again, your theories in the comments are more than welcome. They started working on it probably at the end of 2020. So I still think it will be a while. I think it will be like a final year of the PS5 game, so 2027, 2028, I think. Which would mean that The Last of Us Part 3 is probably PS6, so we had 2 PlayStation 6 games announced this week. Kinda crazy. Now, more imminent is a new game from Sucker Punch, because they are hiring for an experienced community manager to deepen our relationship with fans and have a hand in everything public facing. That's not something you do if you have nothing to show and talk about with your fans in the near future, so it really makes sense that we're seeing that Ghost of Tsushima 2 revealed this year, probably at a PlayStation Showcase in June, that's my bet. Like, first they want Rise of the Ronin out, and then we can shift focus to Jin's sequel. I really can't wait, and will of course keep you up to date here. Also good news for PlayStation fans and even Nintendo fans, as there's almost no doubt now that the best Xbox game from last year, Hi-Fi Rush, is coming to the PS5 and Switch. We already had rumors, but now a new update released, and people data mined it and found a PlayStation shirt and a Switch shirt. So this could be an announcement at an upcoming Nintendo Direct that might happen either this week or the week after. And there's actually more happening this coming week. We get a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth focused state of play on February 6th. Final Fantasy 16 of course also had one, and that game also had a demo before release, and that really helped convince people to buy the game. The demo was great. And well, Square is going for the same approach, because PlayStation Game Size namely found the demo in the backend, which will give players an in-game item called the Kupu Charm Survival Set after completing it, that you can then likely use in the full game. So we'll totally be checking out the demo when it launches, probably after the state of play on February 6th. Also this coming week, Take-Two will do their investor call, and why that's interesting is because that right now they still expect to ship several groundbreaking titles in financial year 2025, so that's between April 2024 and March 2025, and that will make them $8 billion in net bookings, and GTA 6 is very likely included here. So that means that it launches in either January, February or March 2025. Well, if they lower that $8 billion number during this investor call, then they're basically saying, okay, GTA 6 is not coming out in early 2025 anymore. So that will already be interesting. Maybe we hear some other things. I will keep you posted in next week's Sunday video. In terms of content, this week I will have a fun Assassin's Creed video, kind of a different look at the future. We will make more Suicide Squad tips and tricks, and maybe stream some games like that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth demo. Maybe Foam Stars as like the PS Plus title, Helldivers 2 if I can get a code for that. So subscribe for all that good stuff, a like on the video would really help me out, and check out my Suicide Squad review if you are curious by clicking on the screen. I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.